It's common today for people to say that you're the sum of the five people you hang out with the most, but you're actually the sum of the five things you interact with the most. So if you spend more time on TikTok than you do interacting with another person, then you'd be the sum of the people you interact with plus TikTok. Let's say you spend a lot of time on Instagram more than you spend interacting with another person. Then you'd have to be the sum of the amount of time you spend on TikTok plus Instagram, and then any other people that you interact with. And for me recently, I've been absolutely devouring the Sherlock Holmes, the full canon on Audible, because it's absolutely amazing, and I love the description author goes into. But I've noticed in my own speech how I've started using words and phrases that I don't normally use, but are quite often used within the book itself. And none come to mind right now due to the lateness of the day. But undoubtedly, which is one of the words they use a lot in the book, I could rustle some up later on. Anyways, this is just to get you thinking. What do you interact with the most? And it's not necessarily items, but also content. Like, what ideas do you interact with the most? What content do you watch on YouTube? What content do you watch on Netflix? What content do you watch on Instagram or TikTok? And how does that affect you? Because for some years now, I've become aware of how little like, how do I put this? You have such little control over your actual decisions through being unconscious to them throughout the day and truly understanding why you choose to do one thing over another, that when broken down comes to the fact that you can think of a person as a black box. And for those of you that don't know, black box is something in computer programming where you send inputs or information into it, something happens within the box, and then information or actions are then taken. So think of yourself as a black box where the content you take in, the people you take in, the thoughts and ideas that you let into your head, those all get brought into you, and then they shape who you become, which then affects your actions. And there's a feedback loop in here where the actions that you take then shape who you are, which makes it so that cycles or spirals are very common where people enter into downward spirals or upward spirals of success because of how they've changed their behavior. Someone who starts winning in one area of their life, or someone who, great example is, I've known many people on the wrestling team who started off timid and without much self-confidence, but through years of perseverance and sticking with it, they've developed an identity as an elite athlete and a fighter, and that's greatly helped them in other areas of their life. And you'll see this with people, that people who win tend to win in all areas of their life because they're spiraling upwards. You also see this with people who tend to be depressed. Their life starts spiraling downwards. And the hard part that you have to realize is the stuff you take in right now will shape who you will become, which then will inspire you or cause you to take actions which can consume more of that information. So if you are studying, hopefully I've explained this well, but it's like, if you're studying engineering, then then you might find it fascinating to study engineering, so you consume more engineering and find it more fascinating. Similar things can be taken with context to drugs or the content you consume on YouTube, where by watching it, you make yourself more likely to watch it in the future. And there's an interesting concept mentioned in that book, um, Algorithms to Live By, which is it's a fun game theory book talking about how certain algorithms can be applied to everyday use. And one of these algorithms is talking about sorting, and sorting your files, sorting your clothes, sorting whatever you want. And there's this desire to find the most beneficial algorithm to produce the shortest time sorting for something. And what they found is that the last item that you looked at is most likely going to be the next item you want to see. The last piece of clothing that you wore is most likely going to be the piece of clothing you're going to wear next once it's washed. The if you hear then this has also been shown to me through the example I read in a book once, which is the time you're most likely to hear a new word is right after you first heard it. And go back to a little bit, using this algorithm for sorting things, they actually found that it was correct like 81% of the time and far outdid any other method that they could think of. And the reason I'm telling you this is because the content you watch now, the content you interact with now, is most likely going to be the content that you interact with in the future. And I've made videos talking about this where I've talked about how you don't do something once, you do it 1,000 times, and think about it like that. When you decide to go to the gym, reward yourself and be happy in yourself as if you went to the gym 1,000 times. When you decide to skip the gym for no reason besides being lethargic or just not wanting to go, because there's certainly reasons within resting and your own health, but when you engage in bad habits, think of it, before you engage into it, think of it as if you were to engage in that habit 1,000 times. Would you want that for yourself? It's hardly ever one time that you do something. And with that being said, my train of thought is completely lost and I'm a little bit tired, so I'm gonna get to bed. So peace out. Quick update, I remembered what I wanted to say. So with how little you actually are conscious about the decisions you want to make and how you repeat the ones that you've previously made, Andrew Huberman has mentioned how neural pathways which in the brain are similar to a walking path, where the more often you walk down a path, the less you have to think about it and the easier it is to do. I think this is also mentioned in Atomic Habits. But you can understand this if you've ever driven someplace along a road that you normally take to work or school or wherever, but you're going someplace different and you miss a turn and you continue on the path to work because you're not fully conscious and you're kind of just driving on autopilot. This happens a lot more often than you'd think, and one of the reasons I talk about the habits, and if you do them once, you'll do them 1,000 times, is to put it in perspective for people so that they understand during the moments which they are cognitively aware or consciously aware of their habits or whether or not they should do something or what the right thing to do is, you should leap upon those moments and take the advantage of them. You should, if you're doing a habit, if you're sitting down to the TV and you have a sudden impulse, what if I went to the gym? You should jump upon that and go to the gym. You should take advantage of that moment of clarity within your own life and do that, which will then, getting back to the feedback loop, that action will then shape who you are, which will then make the thought of let's go to the gym happen more often. And if you continue building upon that, you'll continue finding it easier to implement better habits.